The palace was silent at night. Not the kind of silence that brings peace, but the kind that hides secrets. Behind marble walls, golden halls, and guarded doors, a different world existed. One that few were allowed to see, and even fewer dared to speak about. At the center of it all was a woman who ruled the most powerful empire on earth. Valeria Messalina, the Empress of Rome. To the public, she was royalty, wife of the emperor, mother of heirs, a symbol of power and stability. But behind closed doors, stories began to spread. Stories so disturbing that even in a city like Rome, they shocked those who heard them. Ancient Rome was no stranger to excess. Wealth, power, indulgence. These were part of daily life for the elite. But Messalina's behavior went far beyond what even Roman society considered acceptable. She married Claudius, a man who would become emperor of Rome. He trusted her, relied on her, and for a time, the empire believed she was the perfect empress. But power changes people, and absolute power removes fear. Messalina lived in a world where no one dared question her, where guards obeyed without hesitation, where servants stayed silent, no matter what they saw. And it was in this environment that her private life became something far darker. Whispers began among palace staff. Servants who moved quietly through corridors at night, who noticed doors opening, figures entering, and leaving before sunrise. At first, no one spoke, because in Rome, accusing the empress was unthinkable. But the rumors grew. They said Messalina used her power not just to rule, but to control people, to summon individuals to the palace, not for politics, but for something else. Refusing was not an option, because when the empress called, you obeyed. Those who caught her attention could rise in status overnight, given wealth, position, protection, but just as quickly, they could disappear. In the dangerous world of Roman politics, favor was temporary, and being too close to power was often a death sentence. Some historians describe Messalina as reckless, others as manipulative, a woman who understood that desire could be used as a weapon, because in Rome, influence didn't always come from the Senate or the army. Sometimes, it came from private rooms. Messalina was said to blur the line between politics and personal life, using relationships to control decisions, to eliminate rivals, to strengthen her position. But the more power she gained, the more dangerous she became. Even powerful men began to fear her, because anyone could become a target, a rumor, a rejection, a misunderstanding. And suddenly, you were accused of betrayal. And in Rome, that meant death. Executions were swift, and often quiet. People vanished, names erased, records altered, all to protect the image of the empire. And at the center of it all, Messalina remained untouched, because she was not just a woman. She was the empress. But power has limits, even in Rome. Eventually, her actions became too visible, too reckless, too dangerous to ignore. Stories reached the highest levels of government. Officials began to worry, not just about morality, but about stability. Because an empress who could control powerful men could also control the empire, and that made her a threat. The moment that changed everything came when Messalina crossed a line. She formed a relationship that was no longer secret, no longer hidden, and in doing so, she challenged the authority of the emperor himself. For Claudius, it was more than betrayal. It was humiliation, and in Rome, humiliation could not be tolerated. The decision was made quickly, quietly. Messalina would be removed, not publicly, not with spectacle, but in silence. One day, she was empress. The next, she was alone, abandoned by those who once obeyed her. When the order came, There was no trial, no defense, no second chance. Her life ended, not in the palace, but away from the power she once controlled. And just like that, she was gone. In the official records, her name was minimized, her story reduced, because Rome did not like to remember its scandals. But the whispers remained. Historians would later debate the truth. Was she really as extreme as the stories claimed? Or were those stories exaggerated by those who wanted her erased? Because in history, the most powerful women are often remembered, not for what they achieved, but for what others said about them. And Messalina became a legend, a symbol of excess, of danger, of what happens when power and desire combine. But whether the stories were true, or shaped by those who feared her, one thing is certain: her name was never forgotten. And even today, she remains one of the most controversial figures in the history of Rome. If you want more dark and hidden stories from history, subscribe now, because some truths were never meant to be told.